I'm going to show you how to fix a Roland Micro Cube Guitar amplifier. The other day I went to practice and found out that my input jack had broken, and I went online and I found out that this is a common problem. The input jack is made out of mainly plastic, and there's a nut here that comes off very easily. And so what happened was that this nut had come off. I didn't notice it, and I was jamming my guitar plug into it, and it ended up cracking the input jack. And I went online and found out that this is a very common problem. And so I was kind of bummed out. I didn't want to buy another amplifier. This was, I believe, out of warranty. So I called Roland after doing a few searches, and I ordered a new input jack and nut, retaining nut. And I'm going to show you what I did to replace that and then have a working amplifier, practice amp again. Okay, so that's what we're going to do today. I'll be showing you how to take this amp apart and then showing you the broken input jack and how to get that removed using your soldering gun, and then putting in the new input jack. The input jack took about 5 days to arrive here in Hawaii. So I'll get on with it, and hopefully if you have this problem, you too will be able to get your Micro Cube back and operating again. I called up Roland and ordered the parts, and they just came in. This is the input jack and the retaining nut. I'll post the part numbers down below. Okay, the first thing in taking this amp apart is we need to remove a total of only 9 screws. You're going to see a lot of other screws here. You only need to remove 9. Let me show you. There is 7 on this side. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and then there's 2 on the top. Okay, so I'm going to remove these screws, and then we'll be able to pull out the inner workings of the amplifier. So I'm going to start by removing the 2 top screws, and I'm going to use a piece of tape, and I'm going to use a piece of tape to hold my screws. You could also use a magnet. So I'll start out with these first 2, and notice that the top screws are going to be longer, and they're also going to have this washer that you want to make sure that you keep. So I like using tape or magnets so that my screws don't get lost. Okay, we'll turn it over, and then we're going to take out 7 screws on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Now, when you remove all your screws, the next thing that we're going to want to do is remove the inner guts of this amplifier. And it's a little bit tricky at first if you've never removed this before. But one thing that you do want to do is make sure to take out the battery cover and make sure there's no batteries in this. You don't want this plugged in at all, or any power getting to it while you're working with it. Okay. Okay, then it will slide out, And you can see that even though, you know, I've removed all the screws, this friction of this foam can kind of keep it wedged in there. So you just got to work it out. And then inside, there are two speaker wires you want to disconnect. And then once you disconnect those, you can pull this right out. Here is the broken input jack. This is the part we're going to need to replace. I need to get in here and unsolder the 4 pins on the PC board. Here are the solder pads that I'm going to need to unsolder. So what I'm going to do now, using a desoldering braid, I'm going to get in and see if I can remove this busted input jack by desoldering these connections. Here's the jack after I removed it. So here are the 4 holes that I'm going to need to put the new input jack in. And here's the new input jack. And this should fit right in. All of these pins should match up. And they do. So here's our new jack. So I'm going to solder this in now. That should help stabilize things a little bit while I'm doing some soldering. Okay. It's in there good. All the pins fit in the holes. Okay, so I want to make sure that I hold this in, make sure that we got good contact with the input jack and the PC board, and then I'm going to start soldering these pins back in. Okay, so I soldered those pins back into the back of the board, and I tested it out. I plugged in a pair of headphones and plugged it into power, and then I've got my guitar plugged in, and I'm just checking it with my headphones through the headphone jack, and it's working fine. So I'm going to put this back together. Okay, so we got to hook the speakers back up with our speaker wire connections. One is thicker than the other one, so, and it matches with the pins to the speaker, so you can't go wrong there. Okay, so with this, my main amp unit slid in part way. I'll go ahead and start hooking up my speaker tabs to the correct connections to the correct pin. And there is a difference, so you can't go wrong with hooking it up to the wrong side of the speaker. But you got to get this in just far enough so that you can make your connections Then once you do that, you can go ahead and slide it together. Okay, so I've hooked up the speaker wires. Now I'm going to just push this all the way in. Snaps in there like that. And then we'll go ahead and check before we screw everything back together. We're going to check to make sure that it works. Okay, so now we're going to put this amp back together. So remember, we have a total of 9 screws here. I've got this on a piece of tape still. We're going to start off with the longest screws first with the washer, and they go in the top. Okay, then we'll turn it over, and then we'll replace the rest of the screws. There's 3 on this side, 3 on this side, and 1 down here. Okay, well, I'm happy to say that with just a little bit of work and some desoldering and soldering, ordering a new input jack, my Micro Cube is working again.